Hello everyone and welcome back. My name is Dr. Vijay Bhatia. Today we are going to talk about what is reality. If you haven't seen my other video on what is reality, please see it before this one. That will give you background to what is real in terms of what we see, what we hear, and how we perceive, and how to differentiate between real and unreal or distorted real. Here we are going to talk about reality. What is truth? What is reality? By definition, it is the state of things as they actually exist, as opposed to an idealistic or notional idea of them. It's important to focus on this actually exist the way they are. They are not distorted, and there is real something, and the way it should look like and the way it is, as opposed to what is in your mind or what is being told to you. It is the state or quality of having existence of something or even a substance. The quality or state of being real. It is like a real event. It's an entity, something that exists, or some state of affairs. People are talking about something in real, not just you hearing from the third person. The totality of real things and events. Having objective, independent existence of something, not artificial, like you can have artificial wood. It is not artificial, but it is real wood. Not fraudulent, like somebody is playing magic with you, showing you a trick that he can do tricks with the mind or with the hands, or showing you some playing cards and then disappearing, or showing you some money disappearing. It's not like that. It is not fraudulent. It's not illusory. It is like you on the television, you are watching something, you're watching a tiger on the screen. That is illusory. That you know it is not real. It is just being shown you, but the real tiger is very different from the tiger shown on the television screen. It is genuine. It is original. Being precisely what the name implies. It tells you this is a leaf and it feels like leaf. The color is like leaf. The feel is like leaf. It is what it says. Occurring or existing in actuality, it is not something that doesn't exist. There has to be something real in existence. It's not like hallucination that you see a person following you as in paranoia. It is actually a person behind you. That's the actuality of it. The mind can play tricks when there is nothing there, and then you still believe there is something there. So it's not like that. It is something real. Of or relating to practical or everyday concerns or activities, existing as a physical entity and having properties that deviate from an ideal, from what it should be, the law or standard. So meaning there is actually something there, and this real one perception, let's say eyes, or two perceptions. So one perception can have distorted view, or it can have false deception or perception that object is there and it looks distorted. That will be perceptual distortion or illusion. And there is no object there, and you are seeing something that is not there, that's not real. So that is no reality there. Even with this one, there is no reality because this is illusion. With this one, when no object is there, there is no reality. Sometimes you see and hear as in a television, but you know it is not real. That is not reality. Sometimes you go and see somebody doing a drama or a theater on the stage. You see the people, you see what they say or what they appear like, and hear them what they say, but they're telling you some kind of story, and that story is not real. So you know it is the totality of the thing, it is an entity. The totality of it, is it real or not real? It might be real one portion, that real people are showing the drama or are on the stage, on the theater, but the story they are telling is not real, it's imaginary. So those are the differences. We need to differentiate what is real, what is illusion, what is partial reality, what is total reality. All these things have to be differentiated. What about a particle? That means the particle, we should be able to detect it. Now we are talking about, as let's say, electron. We can't see the electron. However, we can do different experiments and tell there is a charge on it, there is some weight on it, it revolves around a nucleus. So we know a number of experiments by the scientists who can prove there is an electron. Same thing about a virus. We can't see the virus, only it can be seen under very high magnification with electron microscopes and other things. We don't know whether it exists or not. We don't know whether it is real or not, but the scientists are telling us that it is capable of being detected with high power magnification, and its effect either on the human body or on other animal cells. So they can tell the virus is real and exists and it has effects. Only then it becomes real and the reality is there. In philosophy, something that exists independently of ideas concerning it, that is called reality. Something that exists independently of all other things and from which all other things derive. Reality, the state of things as they exist rather than as they may appear or may be thought to be. Let's say example of diamond. The diamond, the way real diamond is in the real situation, or the feel of it, the look of it. Real numbers in mathematics, it is extension of the rational numbers as opposed to the imaginary numbers or as opposed to the irrational numbers. By the way, rational number can be written as a ratio, like the ratio of 3 by 2 is 1.5, and that can be written in fraction. However, irrational number you cannot write in fractions. For example, pi 22 over 7 will give you a figure of 3.14159. It keeps on going like this. So that is not a rational number. Reality is the sum or aggregate of all that is real or existent within a system, as opposed to that which is only imaginary. As we talk about stage on the played on the in a theater, that what is real, what is partial real, what is true real. Are they just dressed like those? Do they look like them? Do they really are those things? It is not real in totality. In physical terms, totality of a system, known and unknown. There are few things you may not know, but what is the reality? When you are watching a television, you know there are a lot of things going behind the screen, electronic stuff and being radio waves coming and being converted into image. So there is a total of that. Reality is the totality of all things, all structures, actual and conceptual. events of the past and present and phenomena, like somebody is seeing, hearing thunder and lightning. The person who is perceiving it is real to that person. The other person may not get scared, but the person who is scared of these events, it's the reality to that person is very different to another person, whether observable or not observable. It is what a world view, whether it be based on individual or shared human experience, ultimately attempts to describe the thing, describe the how it looks like, and actually gives you the map so that you can reach to the similar conclusion. In common colloquial usage, reality would mean perceptions. How do you see this? What meaning you have given to them? What is your belief about it? What is your attitude towards it? Like we said, my reality is not your reality. Example will be one person who is scared of thunder and lightning. His reality is very different from another person who is not scared of thunder and lightning. It is what a world view, whether it be based on individual or shared human experience, ultimately attempts to describe. One such belief is that there simply and literally is no reality beyond the perceptions or beliefs we each have about reality. So what we are saying is, whatever I see, whatever I believe is reality. Whatever I don't see, whatever I will never see is not the reality. Reality is here and now. Such attitudes are summarized in the popular statement, perception is reality, or life is how you perceive reality. There is nothing out there, it is how you perceive. If you believe there is a world out there, then there is a world out there. If you don't believe that, if you don't perceive that, then there is no other reality. Or reality is what you can get away with, and they indicate anti-realism. That is, the view that there is no objective reality, whether acknowledged explicitly or not. The view that there is reality independent of any belief, perception, is called realism. That means if you don't see something but the other person see, many other people see that thing, then that is the reality, not you alone. What is the reality of majority? More specifically, philosophers are given to speaking about realism, about this and that, such as realism about universals, or realism about the external world, generally where one can identify any class of object, the existence or essential characteristics of which is said not to depend on perceptions, your beliefs, language, or any other human artifact. One can speak of realism about that object. Anti-realism. One can also speak of anti-realism about the same objects. Perhaps the first was idealism, so called because reality was said to be in the mind, or a product of our ideas. Berkeleyan idealism is the view propounded by the Irish empiricist George Berkeley, that the objects of perception are actually ideas in the mind. So what he's saying is, even the things you see outside or hear about them, they are perceptions, they are actually ideas in your mind. In this view, one might be tempted to say that reality is a mental construct. This is not quite accurate, however, since Berkeley's view, when he mentioned about perceptual ideas, he mentioned that these were coordinated by God. Anti-realism. What happened after Berkeley? There was a concept called phenomenalism. Phenomenal Phenomena is something like the example we gave of thunder and lightning, and person is seeing that and hearing that sound. To that person, that is the phenomena going on. Differs from Berkeleyan idealism primarily in that Berkeley believed that minds or souls are not merely ideas nor made up of ideas, whereas varieties of phenomena, such as that advocated by Russell, tended to go further to say that the mind itself is merely a collection of perceptions. So notice here, they are saying, they are defining the mind here. What is the mind? It is just merely the collection of perceptions and your experiences and your memories you have over a period. And that there is no mind. They are even talking about there is no mind or there is no soul over and above such mental events. Finally, anti-realism became a fashionable term for any view which held that the existence of some object depend upon the mind. If you are there, the object is there. If you are not there, object is not there. The view that so-called external world is really merely a social or cultural artifact called social constructionism is one variety of anti-realism. They say all these people who are saying these things exist, it is by the people in their mind. Cultural relativism is the view that social issues such as morality are not absolute, but a partially cultural artifact. What is the correspondence theory of knowledge? A correspondence theory of knowledge about what exists claims that true knowledge of reality represents accurate correspondence of statements about and images of reality with the actual reality that the statements or images are attempting to represent. For example, the scientific method can verify that a statement is true based on the observable evidence that a thing exists. So if a scientist wants to tell that electron exists, he has to do certain experiments and show that this particle exists. Many humans can point to the Rocky Mountains and say that this mountain range exists and continue to exist even if no one is observing it or making statement about it being. For instance, Parmenides taught that reality was a single, unchanging being, whereas Heraclitus wrote that all things flow. So there are two things here. One is being, a human being. So this is a human being. Whereas Heraclitus, he is saying that you are not static, you are a flow, you are evolving, progressing, developing, you are in a flow like a water. It's water in one sense, but that water is on its flow, it's flowing, it's being, not just on its own being, but as a flow. The 20th century philosopher Heidegger thought previous philosophers have lost sight the question of being as just being in favor of the question of beings, existing things, so that a return to the Parmenidean approach was needed. The question of whether or not existence is a predicate. Ontology. Ontology is the philosophical study of being. Existence, that something is, has been contrasted with a sense, the question of what something is. Since existence without essence seems blank, it associated with nothingness by philosophers such as Hegel. Nihilism represents an extreme negative view of being, the absolute, a positive one. So it's important to understand nihilism is a false belief by a very severely depressed person that person will say, I do not exist, my guts are not working, I, I am not alive. So that is his thinking, and that can be extreme, and that is very fixed. You cannot change that as long as that person is so depressed. The question of direct or naive realism as opposed to indirect or representational realism arises in the philosophy of perception and of mind out of the debate over the nature of conscious experience. So when you are conscious, you see something, hear something, to you that is reality. If there are two people, one is sleeping and one is awake, the person who is awake see the thing or hear the thing. To that person the reality is different, but to the person who is sleeping the reality will be different. Is the real world itself or merely an internal perceptual copy of that world generated by neural processes in our brain? Naive realism is known as direct realism when developed to counter indirect or representational realism, also known as epistemological dualism, the philosophical position that our conscious experience is not of the real world itself, but of the internal representation, a miniature virtual reality replica of the world. Reality tunnel. Timothy Leary coined the influential term reality tunnel, by which he means a kind of representative realism. The theory states that, with a subconscious set of mental filters formed from their beliefs and experiences, every individual interprets the same world differently. Hence, truth is in the eye of the beholder. It's important to understand here there are two people here. One person is perceiving a thing, same thing. The other person is perceiving the same thing. This person's perception is very different from this person's perception. For example, this person was asked to look at the tree and tell what can you see. The second person is asked to look at the tree and tell what do you see. This person, they both are warriors and learning warriors. The first person say, I can see the tree and the leaves. The other person is saying that I can see a bird sitting there and I can see the bird's eye, so that he has a very clear target. So it is, the truth is in the eye of the beholder. So whatever is in their mind, that they have a target to look somewhere, and this person is looking at the target, whereas this person is looking at the perception which is seen through his own eyes, rather through the warrior's eye, or with the intention to have the target. Abstract objects and mathematics. The status of abstract entities, particularly numbers, is a topic of discussion in mathematics. In mathematics, the best known form of realism about numbers is Platonic realism, which grants them abstract, immaterial existence. We know that numbers are made by humans and they have some abstract meaning. They are not concrete. Other forms of realism identify mathematics with the concrete physical universe. Anti-realistic stances include formal and fictional. Some approaches are selectively realistic about some mathematical objects, but not others. Some people say that there is no finite thing. They reject the infinite quantities. If you say there are infinite stars in the universe, they will deny that, giving reason that if I stand outside and look at the sky, I can see empty spaces. If it was infinite, there wouldn't be any empty spaces. The other people are using the term ultra-finitism, accepts finite quantities. They accept that there will be certain finite quantities, but beyond that there are even more. Constructivism and intuitionalism are realistic about objects that can be explicitly constructed, but reject the use of the principle of the excluded middle. So they don't want to see how did we reach. So we have given a maths, we have used certain process to reach the conclusion. So from the start to the end, there is a lot going in the middle. So these people will ignore the middle. The traditional debate has focused on whether an abstract, immaterial, unintelligible realm of numbers has existed in addition to the physical, sensible, concrete world. A recent development is the mathematical universe hypothesis, the theory that only a mathematical world exists, with the finite, physical world being an illusion within it. An extreme form of realism about mathematics is the mathematical multiverse hypothesis advanced by Max Tegmark. Tegmark's sole postulate is all structures that exist mathematically also exist physically. That is, in the sense that in those worlds complex enough to contain self-aware substructures, they will subjectively perceive themselves as existing in a physically real world. The hypothesis suggests that worlds corresponding to different sets of initial conditions, physical constants, or altogether different equations should be considered real. The theory can be considered a form of Platonism in that it posits the existence of mathematical entities, but can also be considered a mathematical monism in that it denies that anything exists except mathematical objects. So that is wrong as well. What about when mathematics goes in negative numbers? Now we know that mass cannot be in negative numbers. Therefore, mathematics does not always have a role. What about the time and space? A traditional realist position is that time and space have existence apart from the human mind. Now, time is an abstract. Space is an abstract. They are created by human beings. Though these words, although we have given them meaning, idealists deny or doubt the existence of objects independent of the mind. Some anti-realists' position is that objects outside the mind do exist, nevertheless doubt the independent existence of time and space. Immanuel Kant, in the Critique of Pure Reason, described time as a priori notion. You have to take that into consideration, that altogether with other priori notions such as space, this allows us to comprehend and sense experience. Kant, however, denies that either space or time are substance, entities in themselves, or learned by experience. He holds rather that both are elements of a systematic framework we use to structure our experience. Spatial measurements are used to quantify how far apart objects are, and temporal measurements are used to quantitatively compare the interval either between events or between objects. Although space and time are held to be transcendently ideal in this sense, they are also empirically real, not mere illusions. Idealist writers such as J.M.E. McTaggart in The Unreality of Time have argued that time is an illusion. As well as differing about the reality of time as a whole, metaphysical theories of time can differ in their ascriptions of reality to the past, present, and future separately. Presentism holds that the past and future are unreal. If I haven't seen the future, I cannot predict the future, therefore it is not real. And even the past is gone, especially the past you haven't seen or you've forgotten. That doesn't exist for you. This is the principle held by who believe just in presentism. And only an ever-changing present is real. That's what they will say. The block universe theory, also known as eternalism, holds that past, present, and future are all real, but the passage of time is an illusion. It is often said to have a scientific basis in relativity. The growing block universe theory holds that past and present are real, but the future is not. Possible worlds. The term possible world goes back to Leibniz's theory of possible worlds used to analyze necessity, possibility, and similar modal notions. Modal realism is the view notably propounded by David Kellogg-Lewis that all possible worlds are as real as the actual world. Now remember the word here, possible. In short, the actual world is regarded as merely one among an infinite set of logical possible worlds, some nearer to the actual world and some further away. Other theorists may use the possible world framework to express and explore problems without committing to it ontologically. Possible world theory is related to alectic logic, that is, a proposition is necessary if it is true in all possible worlds and possible if it is true in at least one. So you have a proposition and that is necessary if it is true in all possible worlds and possible if it is true in at least one. The many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics is a similar idea in science. The quantum mechanics explains that you can exist in two different places at the same time. Two different worlds can exist at the same time. Phenomenological reality on a much broader and more subjective level. Specific, private experiences, your curiosity, your inquiry, and the selectivity involved in personal interpretation of events shapes reality as seen by one and only one individual, hence is called phenomenological. We gave an example of somebody seeing lightning and hearing a thunder, and that person is getting scared of that. The other person sees the same phenomena but doesn't get scared. So each person, their own private experiences are very individual to them. While this form of reality might be common to others as well, it could at times also be so unique to oneself as to never be experienced or agreed upon by anyone else. Much of the kind of experience deemed spiritual occurs on this level. So people who say, I have experienced spiritual things, they are very individual, they are very personal, they are very private experiences. And to that person, that is the reality, but to the other person, they don't see as reality. The word phenomenological comes from the Greek word meaning that which appears and meaning to study. So whatever appears, we study that. And in Husserl's conception, phenomenology is primarily concerned with making the structure of consciousness, you becoming aware of that, and the phenomena which appears in acts of consciousness, objects of systematic reflection and analysis. Such reflection was to take place from a highly modified first-person viewpoint, studying phenomena not as they appear to my consciousness, but to any consciousness whatsoever. He believed that phenomenology could thus provide a firm basis for all human knowledge, including scientific knowledge, and could establish philosophy a rigorous science. Sceptical hypotheses. Examples include they are quite skeptical about everything. Like example is the brain in a vat. Vat is just a vessel or some kind of tube or container. Is that it supposes that one might be in this embodied brain, kept alive in a vat, and fed false sensory signals by a mad scientist. This is a premise of the film called Matrix Hypothesis. The other dream argument. Now, the person who is having a dream, sometimes it is really hard to distinguish from the reality, although the person knows it is a dream, but many a times it can be very difficult. Descartes is a famous philosopher. Evil demon is a being as clever and deceitful as he is powerful, who has directed his entire effort to misleading me. Scientific realism. Scientific realism is at the most general level the view that the world described by science is the real world, as it is independent of what we might take it to be. For example, a virus, COVID-19. The scientists are telling us they have seen it, the effects of it, they have studied it in lab, they have studied it in the field, they have seen the effects in different countries. So they are the one who are telling what is real. The virus is real, but to ordinary person, it is hard to believe that virus can cause such a big havoc in the whole world. The debate over what the success of science involves centers primarily on the status of entities that are not directly observable discussed by scientific theories. Generally, those who are scientific realists state that one can make reliable claims about these entities as directly observable entities as opposed to instrumentalism. The most used and studied scientific theories today state more or less the truth. The idea of science is to reach the truth. Realism and locality in physics. Realism, in the sense used by physicists, does not equate to realism in metaphysics. The latter is the claim that the world is mind-independent. So what metaphysics is saying, that the world is mind-independent. Either you are there or you are not there, the world is there. That even if the results of a measurement do not pre-exist the act of measurement, that does not require that they are the creation of the observer. Furthermore, a mind-independent property does not have to be the value of some physical variable such as position or momentum. A property can be dispositional or potential. It can be tendency in the way that glass objects tend to break or are disposed to break, even if they do not actually break. Metaphysics is the branch of philosophy that examines the fundamental nature of reality, including the relationship between mind and matter, between substance and attribute, and between potentiality and actuality. The word metaphysics comes from the two Greek words together, literally meaning after or behind or among the natural, study of the nature. Metaphysics seeks to answer in an abstract and fully general manner the questions: what is there? What is it like? Topics of metaphysical investigation include existence, objects, and their properties, space and time, cause and effect, and possibility. Likewise, the mind-independent properties of quantum systems could consist of a tendency to respond to particular measurements with particular values with ascertainable probability, such as ontology, would be metaphysically realistic without being realistic in the physicist sense of local realism, which would require that a single value be produced with certainty. A closely related term is counterfactual definiteness, used to refer to the claim that one can meaningfully speak to the definiteness of results of measurement that have not been performed, that is, the ability to assume the existence of objects and properties of objects even when they have not been measured. Local realism is a significant feature of classical mechanisms of general relativity and electrodynamics. Quantum mechanics has shown that quantum entanglement is possible. Quantum entanglement meaning one thing can affect the other thing without touching each other, without being close to each other. Different interpretations of quantum mechanics violate different parts of local realism and counterfactual definiteness. Virtual reality and cyberspace. Virtual reality is a computer-simulated environment that can simulate physical presence in places in the real world as well as in the imaginary world. The virtuality continuum is a continuous scale ranging between the completely virtual. On one side there is completely virtual, on the other side there is completely real, reality. So there is a whole lot of continuum between them. The reality-virtuality continuum therefore encompasses all possible variations and compositions of real and virtual objects. It has been described as a concept in new media and computer science, but in fact it could be considered a matter of anthropology. Anthropology is the study of humans, human behavior, and societies in the past and also in the present. The area between two extremes, where both the real and the virtual are mixed, is called mixed reality. This is happening a lot in the computer science. This in turn is said to consist of both augmented reality, where the virtual augments the real, and augmented virtuality, where the real augments the virtual. Cyberspace, the world's computer systems, considered as an interconnected whole, can be thought of as a virtual reality. RL in the Internet culture. RL on the Internet means real life, refers to real life in the real world. It generally references life on consensus reality in contrast to environment seen as fiction or fantasy, such as virtual reality, lifelike experience, dreams, novels, movies, online, IRL, in real life, with the meaning not on the Internet. Sociologists engaged in the study of the Internet have determined that someday a distinction between online and real life worlds may seem quaint, noting that certain types of online activity such as sexual intrigues have already made a full transition to complete legitimacy and reality. The abbreviation RL, real life, stands for real life. For example, one can speak of meeting in RL, someone whom one has met in a chat room or on an internet forum. It may also be used to express an inability to use the internet for a time due to RL problems. References to all above has been taken mainly from the Wikipedia on the subject of reality, and the program BBC documentary in 2016 by the David Eagleman on the brain with David Eagleman. If you are interested, I would recommend you watch this program on What is Reality on the YouTube. Thank you for watching this. Press the like button if you like this video and share with your friends. Subscribe the channel. I urge you to watch my video on what is real about perception.